Most traumatic event was my quest for my gold medal. Before I got into the gold medal race, I never knew what stress was. My biggest childhood challenge is I was an asthmatic since I was 7 years old, and I used to have really bad asthma. So everybody was waiting to see, and everybody believed also that this business could not survive. So I was, and took some big decisions of investing money to put up new rolling mills and so on. So where I lost focus is I suddenly realized in 2015 I touched 83 kilos of weight.
Okay, so today we have with us Sachit Jain, and Sachit is Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Vardhman Special Steel Limited, a Vardhman textile group company. And Sachit has transformed culture and systems in all the teams he has led. In last 10 years, he has taken Vardhman Steel from a 250 crore company to 840 crore plus, and the current team strength is around 1300 plus workers. And in 2019, Sachit led the tie-up with Aichi Steel, part of Toyota Group Japan, and they have taken 11.4% stake in Vardhman Steel. Sachit is an electrical engineer from IIT Delhi and a gold medalist from IIM Ahmedabad. Sachit has been actively involved with CII for last 25 years and was chairman of Northern Region of CII last year. He's on board of governors of IIM Amritsar and also on board of Center for Creative Leadership. Sachit is a very good friend, and I have had the privilege of mentoring many leaders in his team. And I have personally heard many inspiring stories from them about how Sachit and his style has practically transformed their lives. So thank you, Sachit, for joining us. And so this show is focused on learning through stories and real life stories. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your personal life journey beyond all these qualifications and achievements.
So my father was a bureaucrat. He was in the railways. So he grown up in various cities. Moved from Lucknow, where we were in RDSO colony, and then moved to Varanasi, where we were in DLW. My father was in the diesel locomotive works. That's where we grew up most of our schooling. You're used to a small town kind of a situation. And then my father got transferred to Delhi towards the end of 11th. And suddenly I was in this big city and St. Columbus School. So big city, big school, one of the top schools. And one felt a little intimidated because if you recall, UP, everybody had gained 6 months, and Delhi, people had lost 6 months, and so on when the transition from in the schooling happened to the April year. And so I was the youngest by far in the class. So a new school, big city, end of class 11, very odd time to join a new school. Luckily, I got it. And then got into IIT. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I remember this discussion with my father. What should I do? I'm preparing for IIT. Why should I be preparing for IIT? So he asked me, are you good in sports? Can you build sports as a career? I said, no. He said, can you build music as a career? I said, no. Are you good in anything else? I said, no. He said, you want to be a doctor? I said, no. You want to be a chartered accountant? I said, no. Might as well go to IIT. So that's how you're a good student. You take the IIT exam, got in, had a good rank, joined electrical engineering. But within 3 months, I realized that's not what I want to do. I enjoyed IIT. IIT was a fabulous place. Hostel was great place to grow up. But I did a few management courses there also, and I found I loved that. And when I went to IIM Ahmedabad, I loved it there, and I found my calling. In we, of course, since I had not done very well in IIT, grade point about 8.5, I was not happy with that. So, but in IIM, I studied hard from day one. By chance, I got my gold medal, and then joined Levers. And I thought I will work in Hindustan Lever for 3 years and then figure out if I want to go to teaching, because teaching really I felt was what I wanted to do.
Okay.
Circumstances took me, I got married to Suchita, and suddenly I joined Vardhman Group, and I got catapulted to top management from a management trainee level. And we were in Baddi in Himachal, where textile factories were being set up. And suddenly I was the ED of the company because of the boss's son-in-law. Setting up factories, I had no idea of textile, I had no idea of factories, no idea of workers. I was in sales and marketing in Hindustan Lever. So I learned all that, learned leadership from the grassroots, figure out how to handle workers, gave speeches to 2,000 people in front of you, and so on. So learned leadership, my own brand of leadership, so to speak. Grew to about 8,000 people we were handling in Baddi in various factories, set up a factory every year, and so on. Then moved to Ludhiana, which is our head office. This was about 12 years ago, after 18 years on the shop floor, being in factories and so on. Then suddenly on the corporate office, you see the corporate office structure, you see the politics, and you see all that. Even if you're part of the family, you see all that around you. Then finally, I was getting bored. And then luckily, the steel business, we had a small steel division. As a family, we discussed, can we grow this business? And it was decided I will run this business, and we hived it off. And then last 10 years, I've been running the steel business. I was part of Vardhman Textile as well as running this. So about 3 years ago, quit from Vardhman Textile, and I'm running this. I'm doing this full time.
So what has been your most proud moment as a leader in this journey? Any small story you can share?
I think the proudest moment was, the belief in our chairman, my father-in-law, the senior management, top management of the steel business was that this business could not survive. Though I got a chance to run it, my strategy should be to harvest the cash from this business and eventually sell this business, and I should not invest too much into this business. And the proudest moment was when I got Aichi Steel of Japan, which is probably the world's #1 special steel company for the automotive sector, when they decided to partner with us and invested in our company and became our partners. So they became our friend, partner, guru, and together we have a plan to make this company India's #1 alloy steel company and grow to maybe 1 million tons of steel in the next 10 years, maybe $1 billion. We've grown about 4 times in the last 10 years and probably another 5-6 times in the next 10 years. So the idea is by the time I retire from this business, maybe 20-25 times growth. But so, what I'm talking about is in the future.
Yeah, I got it. So now I would like you to describe the soil and roots beyond the tree and fruit. So you see a very successful leader who have delivered a lot of results, led large teams. So describe the soil and the roots for you?
So I think it all starts from what kind of parents and what kind of upbringing you have. So my parents have been very encouraging right from the beginning. We had a very open environment where there was no fear anything. We were taught camaraderie, me and my brother. And, as siblings, you would always fight. We would end up fighting every day for some reason or the other. But we had rules while fighting. So one, we would never hit anybody. I remember slapping my brother only once. And he's never hit me, of course. He's a younger brother, so he's always calling me Bhaiya. So that, but we would wrestle and all. And remember, you're in a fight and a phone comes. So we would leave the fight where it was, attend the phone because somebody had to attend the phone and come back in the same position. We had those kind of rules. Okay. And my parents made sure that they never took sides. So whenever we would fight, and my mother would catch us fighting, and she would never say who started what. Because kids always used to say, he started it or he started it and so on. She would put both of us in a room and stand outside with a hockey stick or whatever and said, I'm standing outside. You sort it out amongst yourselves and come out or both will get it. There's no discussion of give your side and you give your side and so on. Taught right from the beginning to sort out things amongst ourselves. We were taught division of labor. And fair division of labor, supposing that the last dish of Firni left, person would do the division and the other person got the choice. Which side to choose. So we were taught fairness right from the beginning. We were involved in housework. And luckily, we were in smaller cities. We had big houses where we had trees. We would climb on trees. We've been involved in sowing of dhan, transplantation of dhan in the, and then that water, and you do that after come back from school and do that. We've been on a tractor, done all this kind of stuff, which normally you don't expect kids of our kind of background to have done. And we were taught the value of honesty. If honesty shared a mistake, also you never got fired. You never. So those are the kind of things that do my leadership also. That openness. If anybody shares a mistake, I never get angry. And so overall, I have developed a style of encouraging people, developing my own people from inside rather than hiring talent from outside. Okay. Of course, sometimes it becomes inevitable to hire talent from outside, and normally it creates problem. That is my experience. So developing people, building teams, not hearing one side. Normally, if somebody comes to you that there's a problem, I said, both of you come together. I don't want to hear one side. Those things I've done. Given, delegate a lot of decision making. I've believed a lot in people. Fortunately, for most of my career, it's been over 30 years now. My people, my teams have always done 2 steps better than what I thought they were capable of.
So if you have to think of one or two events which shaped your personality and style of leadership, which one will stand out for you?
So as I said, these were some events in childhood, the way we
Hmm.
were brought up.
Hmm.
I would also say as a leader, most traumatic event was my quest for my gold medal.
Okay.
So that was quite traumatic because before I got into the gold medal race,
Hmm.
I never knew what stress was. I
Okay.
didn't know what depression was. In IIM, there's a lot of pressure, and you would see your colleagues stressed out and so on. And you could empathize that the other person is in discomfort, but if you have not known stress, you won't know what's really affecting the other person. You would just
Hmm. Hmm.
offer your empathy, and that's beyond that. But you couldn't understand. And I was always a good student in IIM. I worked hard in IIM.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was at the top. I was the top 5 at the end of first year. Now top 3
Hmm.
and I am Ahmedabad get medals, and all 4 were way ahead of me. There's no chance of the gold medal. Second year, first semester, I did extremely well, and one of our classmates, a competitor, did badly. So he slipped down, and I climbed up, and first was way ahead. So suddenly, I was in the race of second, third, fourth, and suddenly I was in the race of a gold medal. So before that, I never saw the possibility of gold medal, and suddenly a gold medal was a
Hmm.
possible. And
Hmm.
then I started calculating grades, and every assignment would come in, and what grades I got, what did my so-called competitors get, and then I did a PhD in stress in 6 months. I came to know what depression was, what stress was. 6 months were hell. Of course, I made it. I got my gold medal.
Hmm.
I learned my lesson of, I got the grapes and found that they were sour. So I'm
Hmm.
glad I got the gold medal because if I
Hmm.
hadn't got it and felt it's not worth it, then this thing was, it's a case of sour grapes. You didn't get it, so it's sour
Yeah,
grapes.
yeah, yeah.
Got it.
This would have changed the way probably you lead people and make them successful.
Oh, yes. In fact, later I discovered this is what Bhagavad Gita talks about, Nishkam Karma and Sakam Karma, that you put in the effort and don't bother about the fruit. So this is a basic lesson. I didn't know that, but I experienced it. And when I came across that in a lesson of Bhagavad Gita in a lecture, Chinmay Mission or the other one, I don't remember which one, but I
Okay.
came across this lecture and I said, oh shit, this is what I experienced. That experience has definitely, so I have I've always emphasized that organization goal is important, not look for personal glory. I
Hmm.
have worked for personal glory. Getting a gold medal is personal glory. I got the personal glory, but it's not worth it. The way my management style has been, I've always shared personal examples from my own life. When you talk to people,
Hmm.
talk to people about upliftment and talk to people about stuff that nobody talks about. For example, I would talk to workers about family planning and that you need to have just 2 children and uplift yourself. The power of trust, the power of love. I've told my people, how do you hug your father? Imagine getting a 40-year-old man to go and hug his father, who's never hugged his
Hmm.
father. Because in India, women understand emotions. Women will go and
Yes.
hug their parents or kids very easily.
Hmm.
But for men, adult men, to go and hug their father is extremely
Very
difficult.
difficult, yes.
I mean, if you're not done it, if you've been doing it, it's fine. But most of us stop doing that. So I've
Hmm.
got people to actually go and hug their father. That they said, "Wow, it was a transformation." So basically, I've tried to connect to people at the heart. All of us are intelligent people. I mean, all of us have the capability of the mind, the strategy, the hard parts of the McKinsey 7S structure, system, strategy. We get that very fast. It's
Hmm.
a style of management and the shared values. Those are the things which connect people and which lead to lasting motivation. I've learned the power of appreciation. I mean, this I had all right from childhood. That the power of appreciation. If you come across this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Hmm. I remember that.
Carnegie. I mean,
Carnegie.
I came across this book when I was in class 8th. I read that and I found it so powerful. So simple things like that. So what I find is managing people is not very complicated. It's very simple. It's just go back to basics. Know it all, but we are taught to stay away from our emotions and stay away from getting attached to people and so on. But that I think is my biggest strength.
So what would you call, if you look at the whole journey, what was the For you, what was the biggest turning point of your life?
I think the biggest turning point of my life was my marriage,
Okay.
because that really changed. So suddenly, for your listeners and viewers who don't know, Suchita, my wife, is the only child of Mr. S.P. Oswal, the chairman of Vardhman Group. So suddenly here I was a management trainee with Hindustan Lever, and after my marriage, I became the executive director of Vardhman Group. And I have no illusions. I would not have reached that position if I wasn't the chairman's son-in-law. So really that was a turning point. I moved from management training to manage top management. I moved from marketing of soaps to manufacturing textiles, setting up factories, hiring workers, dealing with government. The kind of gamut of experiences I've had at the age of 25, 26. Most people don't have at the age of 35, 40. I mean, I remember Industries Association and being the first president at the age of 26. The Baddi Baroti Wala Nalagarh Industry Association, which is the largest industry association of Himachal Pradesh. I became the first president at 26. And I remember I sought a meeting with the chief secretary as president of this association, and I got the meeting. And I can still remember I walked into his office and his jaw falling. He said, "I thought I had a meeting with the president of this association." I said, "Sir, I'm the president of the association." So that was the turning point really. So I got catapulted to top management. And somehow, even when I was in IIT, I always knew that I felt that I did not have the capability to rise up the ranks of leadership of an organization. I knew that. I don't know how, but I knew that. But I also knew that if I reached top management, I would know how to do a good job.
So my question to you is that, while you got the exposure, initially it might be quite tough where you get the vibes from people that he's here because of something else, not being generated it. So what was the core thing to establish yourself as Sachit rather than the son-in-law? What made the shift for you?
So fortunately, I was very clear when I was discussing with my father-in-law to join Vardhman. I was very clear I will not join the head office, and
That
I
was
will join a distant location. So I was very clear. And
Mm,
fortunately, a new location was coming up in
mm,
Baddi, Himachal. So I joined that location. And there was a senior vice president already recruited to head this factory. And suddenly I came and took his place. I became his boss, and I was the head of that operations there. No, it's basically my behavior. So one, I was away from the chairman and in Ludhiana, and so I was away from there. But two, people got to see me because this senior vice president had airs about his position. For example, in a remote location like Baddi, when he would leave in his car in the evening, he would not take anybody in his car when
mm,
transportation was a problem. And I would come when I would leave in the evening. My car was open to anybody and everybody at the gate, stand waiting for some transportation. So suddenly people found that so-called Malik,
mm,
still, this is not in a way, it was very different of the corporate world. People would see me as the
mm,
owner. Malik, the owner is willing to take people in his car. And
mm,
here is professional senior vice president who would not take anybody in his car.
mm,
And my car, sometimes 5, 6, 7 people in my car. Transportation was a problem. The only thing they had to suffer was I would drive, and I was new at driving, and I didn't know a gear less than the fifth gear. So that was the only problem that they had to suffer. My driving. Beyond that, my car was always open. Then people saw that my office was always open. Anybody could walk into my office.
mm, mm,
I started sharing lunches together because we're in a remote location. Everybody would get their lunches from home. It was a factory site, construction going on, and a small makeshift office and so on. And we said, okay, let's all eat together. And
mm.
people suddenly saw that here we're sharing food and eating together and so on. So basically, the basic common good behavior that you could connect to people, and then
Mm,
people found. Luckily, that's where I believe a good education makes a big difference. So my MBA gave me a lot of conceptual skills. So if
mm,
it's a simple project, the project was already delayed when I joined it. And I brought it back and got it implemented in time by just simply implementing a simple CPM chart. Simple project management teaches you that, but that was missing factory at that point in time. So people saw that I knew stuff, that I was capable. So they saw my behavior. There was no
and competency as well.
I could connect to people, and they saw that there was also conceptual knowledge and clarity of how to get things done. So
Mm,
I guess somewhere our education and people were impressed about the IIT and the IIM. So that
mm,
helped So I was not just the boss's son-in-law. I was also an IIT IIM guy, and we didn't have anybody in our entire group from IIT. We had an IIM Ahmedabad guy, but in a distant part of the business, which was really not part of mainstream. But so I was something of a, I know that branding definitely helped. So the branding helped, the knowledge helped, and my
His
own
attitude.
behavior.
So let me go back to your childhood a little bit. So what would you say would be your biggest childhood challenge?
So my biggest childhood challenge is I was an asthmatic since I was 7 years old, and I used to have really bad asthma. And those were times before inhalers and so on, and before oxygen. And I used to suffer a lot, and I used to have this attack every year after the wheat harvesting season. So it was really bronchial asthma, allergic bronchial asthma. So that was bad. The second challenge I would say was perhaps when I got into IIT, and I didn't enjoy studies too much there. Actually, would miss classes weeks on end and so on. And I would bunk so many classes. And so my father would tell me, beta, for a change study. And I would always say, Papa, next time. So, but there, from moving to a situation of hardworking student getting into IIT to 4 years of no studies, and then again to transform myself that when I got into IIM, first of all, again, working hard to get into IIM, and then worked hard throughout my 2 years at IIM, which eventually made my gold medal also. So I needed to prove to myself that I had it in me.
So what would you say the biggest dilemma you faced where you really thought and thought? What was the most difficult decision of your life?
I guess the biggest dilemma was Vardhman is a very successful business, and my father was a absolutely rock star, a very successful industrialist. But he's a hands-on manager, and he would wants to do everything himself and so on. I wanted an independent role, and I found that after, of course, I mean, I got a lot of independence running those factories in Baddi and so on. But beyond that, eventually you want to be a business head and run a business and run the entire responsibility and so on. When I wasn't getting that, so I was debating whether, should I leave Vardhaman and try to work somewhere else or but eventually as a family, once we got the steel business, decided the steel business was offered to me. Now, steel business, I didn't know ABC of steel. And the belief in the group was the steel business could not survive. The dilemma at that time was that should I take up the steel business or not, or, what to do? Because I had crossed 40 at that stage, and it was high time I got some independent charge. So really, I was 44 at that. And then I took the plunge. I said, okay. Dad said, okay, you can have the steel business to run. And he promised me complete independence, no interference at all. He would not be on the board also. And I had freedom to appoint my board. Of course, he appointed the chairman of the company, and I had full respect, regard for this chairman. My wife was the owner's representative on the board. And other than that, I had freedom to appoint anybody on the board. So with complete independence, not the ownership, but at least management independence. And wealth and money was never important to me. But the fact that I could get independent role where I could do things my way, luckily that worked out well. But when I went into it, I said, even if I go down, I'll go down fighting. So that's how I thought about it. So because if the people who know the business felt this business had no future, here was an upstart, and the entire city of Ludhiana was waiting. Everyone knows Mr. SP Oswal is a rock star, and he is. And how will his next generation come in? I was a bit of an icon. I mean, a bit of a enigma to people because I moved to Ludhiana in 2008, and nobody moves into Ludhiana. People grow up in Ludhiana, move out, or they stay there. So I had moved into Ludhiana, and we are the largest group in Ludhiana, and Mr. Oswal's son-in-law, IIMA Ahmedabad. So everybody was waiting to see, and everybody believed also that this business could not survive. So and took some big decisions of investing money to put up new rolling mills and so on. Those were big risks I took. And God was kind that it all turned out okay, but it could well have been the other way around, and I would have been a failure. So the difference between success and failure is really tiny.
So one question is, what has kept you anchored in turbulent times, or if you can describe a biggest failure or setback that you had and which you turned around?
I guess my biggest failure was I could not convince my father-in-law that my style of management. He is a very hands-on person, and he's done a phenomenal job. And there's no doubt about it. But my belief that that is required in the early stages of an organization, is my belief. And as the organization becomes larger, you have to manage much more through people than yourself, and it's far more delegated and detached. That is my approach. I'm not saying that's the only way, but that's my way. And I could not, but of course, my way also means rewarding people and hiring very good people and rewarding them and delegating a lot of authority, responsibility, and so on. So, but when I got this independent charge in our steel business, and I could do that, I have delegated a lot. I have rewarded people very well with financial incentives, independence, decision making, all those things, and stock options, of course, and long-term incentives. And because I had the freedom, I could do all that. Luckily, when we got Aichi to come in and invest in Vardhman Steel, and that is the time Dad also said that, I mean, he acknowledged finally that, I've done a good job. So that was good. And finally, he acknowledged that my ways can also work.
So I think this is a little delicate question. Any story where you lost focus, got overwhelmed temporarily, and how did you recover? So one is this gold medal story, probably will fit in this side, but anything else after the college?
So let me answer the other question a little more first. You said, what keeps me anchored? I think you would ask me that question.
Yeah.
So what keeps me anchored is friendships, family. I'm very close to my parents. I'm close to my brother. My wife has been a very big support to me. Hobbies. So I have lots of interests in life. So those hobbies give me, so I enjoy my life. And spirituality. These are the things which have kept me anchored. So I rarely get depressed. I'm always, anybody asks me how you're feeling, I normally do feel top of the world. So that's great. But yeah, so where I lost focus is I suddenly realized in 2015 I touched 83 kilos of weight. I'm 5 feet 9.5. So 83 is, I mean, not too bad, but it's not good. By no stretch of imagination is it good. And I kept trying to lose weight. I would come down to 80, 80.5, go back to 82.5. So I was fluctuating between this for a long time. So I lost focus there. Really. And this year, of course, when COVID came and we had a lockdown, I said, okay, I use this opportunity. In this period, I've lost 7.5 kilos. So I'm now below 75. I'm still not where I want to be. I'd like to be 70 kilos, significantly down from the peak I touched.
So is there any unusual or absurd activity, hobby, or thing that you love?
So one, I've written a book, and I don't have a ghostwriter. I wrote it myself.
Ready to take off.
Ready for takeoff. I wrote it. Sold about 15,000 copies, so it was good fun. I love trekking, high altitude trekking. My idea is to go at least twice a year on treks. And trekking is where the camping and you are cut off from the world, no electricity and no cell phone coverage. You don't have a bath for 5, 6 days, 7 days. You don't see your face. So it's a tough life. Go up to 15, 16,000 feet. I'm not a mountain climber. It's just trekking. It's not technical kind of stuff. That's a hobby I have. I'm playing table tennis. I'm playing serious table tennis. I was Punjab champion in the veterans category. About 7 years ago, I became Punjab champion. I went for nationals also.
Okay.
So I'm leading, and recently I started cycling. In addition to other things. In fact, this COVID times have been very good. It's unfortunate for many people, but I've used this opportunity.
So, is there any ritual or anything, any daily practice that you follow over the years that has, helped you?
So I will not say something daily. I do talk to my parents my parents are not living with me, and my father. I'm lucky. You're 54, and both your parents are around. I know that very few of us at this stage can say that I'm one of the lucky people. So I'm very close to my parents, and I do try to talk to them almost every day on the phone. Try to meet them every week. So that's a big strength. But on a daily basis, I try to do meditation about 4 or 5 times a week. Sometimes it becomes less. Sometimes I'm doing it every day. Meditation is something, and I exercise every day. I miss only when I'm not well. I mean, even if I'm taking an early morning flight, I'll walk at the airport. Daily exercise is a very important part of my life. I like to meet friends whichever city I go.
Okay.
So friends from school, from IIT, from IIM, from Harvard. I went for a big course a long course at Harvard. So I have many friends
Hmm.
from Harvard across the world. I do like to remain connected to people.
What are you now looking forward in life after when you have reached this point in life?
So, as I said earlier, very clearly, the second phase of our organization growth, making this company into a million-ton steel company and maybe $1 billion of sales over the next 10 years. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to now children. I've got two daughters, two lovely daughters. My elder daughter got married in February this year, just before COVID, February end. So
Hmm.
we were very
Hmm.
lucky. It was one of the last big fat Indian weddings kind of things. So it
Hmm.
happened just before COVID. I've got a lovely young man as my son-in-law. So really want to see, and my younger daughter has just joined London Business. She joined London Business School doing her MBA. So the next joy is seeing how my kids, these young ladies, how they shape up. I want to see my elder daughter, who's married and now living in Hyderabad, trying to figure out how being in Hyderabad, how can she be associated with the group? So we're trying to
Hmm.
figure that out. And three, I've just joined the board of Center for Creative Leadership, the world's one of the world's leading leadership training institutes based out of the US. So I'm looking forward to being on the board of this great
Yeah.
institution.
I was
And,
about to ask you, there was a professor dream somewhere, a professor in you
oh,
or a
that's very much there. Idea to teach is very much there. I've been taking guest lectures here and there. I hope at some stage I would like to teach at IIMA Ahmedabad on a regular basis,
Hmm.
being my alma mater. And now because my daughter is in Hyderabad, hopefully I've started a conversation with the dean at ISB. So I
Hmm.
would like to teach at ISB. So teaching leadership is very much on the agenda. Maybe a second book.
Yeah.
Definitely a few more treks. Maybe Annapurna Base Camp is on the agenda. Some safaris. I love safaris, so I have to explore. Yeah, it's a late interest in life, but I have to explore that. And I want to get a PADI certificate for scuba diving. So there is a hell of a lot still to be done.
Okay. And the final question would be, what advice would you give to a smart, driven leader or a leader in making? What
So
would you advise?
one thing is, of course, don't do what the world is doing or expecting you to do. Follow your own passions. So be true to yourself. So that is one. Even while you're following your passions and give it your best, don't go overboard into that. Remember, ultimately, it is happiness that counts, and wealth and worldly success will not give you the happiness. Happiness will come from experiences, from relationships, from family, parents, siblings, if you're married, spouse, kids, friends. So these are the things that are really valuable. And for me, fortunately, I have continued with all these right throughout my life. Continue to have interests outside of work. When you are
Hmm.
young and starting out in life, and your family is also starting out, you don't have that much time for your interests. But keep it in your mind. So invest maybe a little time in that, but don't forget those interests. They really bring out the joy. So do that. Remember that it is very important to be a nice human being. So treat people below you, less fortunate than you, your subordinates, etc., in the way that you would like to be treated by others. Whether you get treated or not is not in your control. But for example, people say, "Ah, shit, I got an asshole as a boss." You can't control how your boss will behave or what kind of boss you get. You can't control that. But you can control what kind of boss your subordinates will get. So not your subordinates say behind your back,
Hmm.
"Oh shit, what an asshole I have as a boss."
Yeah, so I think all these stories as well as the philosophy and values is very enriching, and I have learned a lot. As while despite having known you for quite some time, I think this has put in a lot of pieces of puzzle together for me as well, and I'm sure it would be very useful for the viewers of this channel. So thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you, Ron. You've been part of our journey, and we are lucky that we found you in our journey. And thank you so much for having me, and all the best for this new initiative of yours. All the best.